Hey guys. Tonight we're drifting way back, far beyond dusty textbooks and toga cliches, into the slow-burning myth of a sun god, a cranky herd of cows, and the weirdest career pivot in ancient Greece. You're not climbing Mount Olympus tonight. No, tonight you're being gently kicked off of it. The wind is warm, dry, scented faintly with time and betrayal. You're Apollo. Yes, that Apollo. Radiant, golden, divine. You shoot plagues as easily as glances, compose symphonies on the lyre, and casually predict the future over breakfast. And yet, here you are, standing ankle-deep in muddy Thessalian grass. Because you sort of, maybe, murdered someone. In your defense, Zeus's son Asclepius had gotten really good at raising the dead. Too good. And Hades was complaining. Again. So, in a divine overreaction, one of your signature moves, you struck the guy down. With a bolt of celestial light. No less. Unfortunately, this time even your dad Zeus was like, you need a time out. So now you're banished from Olympus. For a year. As a mortal, you probably won't survive this. Your powers are muted, your aura dimmed, and your wardrobe suddenly less gold brocade and more scratchy wool tunic. No more sipping nectar with muses. No more oracles whispering sweet nothings. Just you, your bruised ego, and the walk of shame across Greece. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from, and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge into Thessaly under a sky that used to bend to your mood. Now it just ignores you politely. Your feet ache, your golden hair is catching twigs. You're hungry, too, but not in the divine, philosophical sense. No, you're mortal hungry, and Thessaly is full of goats. Not gourmet. Eventually, you stumble upon a modest palace. Not marble, not glittering with divine endorsement, but tidy, welcoming, in a peasant chic sort of way. This is the home of King Admetus. Not a big-name king. More like a regional manager of Thessalian wheat. But the guy has a reputation, honest, fair, a little awkward. Most importantly, hiring. You're not above day labor now. So you knock. The guard takes one look at your impossibly symmetrical face and furrows his brow like, why is this male model begging for work? But he lets you in. Inside, Admetus sits on a carved wooden throne with all the confidence of someone who definitely has imposter syndrome. He's got a kind face. If a bit overwhelmed, the kingdom's fine, the cows are not. Admetus squints at you. You ever work with cattle? You consider lying. You also consider smiting him. But both feel like overkill. You nod. I've observed a lot of cattle. He hires you anyway. Because in ancient myths, nobody ever asks for references. Historians still argue whether this part of the myth reflects a real practice, kings bringing on anonymous strangers as shepherds, or if it's just a poetic way of saying, the gods are watching. So treat your servants nicely. But in this story, it's quite literal. You're now a cowherd. Apollo. Cowherd. You're given a staff, rough wood, worn smooth with calluses not yet yours, and a place to sleep in the servant quarters. No harp, no sun chariot, just you, and a growing realization that your hair's going to get very frizzy without Olympian conditioner. On your first morning, the cows look at you like they know. Like they're thinking, oh great, another divine punishment case. The last one couldn't tell hay from a rock. These aren't charming cartoon cows either. They're massive, unpredictable, horned creatures with a talent for personal insult. You try to establish dominance. They blink slowly. One farts in your direction. And just like that, your pastoral punishment begins. The sun rises, without your help, and the Thessalian fields stretch endlessly. Golden and quiet, your once radiant aura is now a sweaty glow. You wish you had invented sunscreen already. You wonder if Dionysus would trade jobs with you. At least his followers get wine. As the day drags on, the cows wander, and you try to remember which direction the palace was in. You whistle, nothing. You try singing. One of the bulls charges at a rock and loses interest halfway. You sigh, leaning on your staff, and take in the landscape. It's almost beautiful. In a dusty, pastoral kind of way, you start to hum, an ancient tune that once made laurel trees sprout. The grass rustles. A bird lands on your shoulder, briefly mistaking you for something useful. It's strange, being ignored by the cosmos. Humbling, too. Later that evening, you're given bread and olives. The palace cook stares at you like you're either too pretty to be trustworthy or too useless to be fed. You smile vaguely and eat in silence. One of the older servants mutters that the cows used to behave better before the last herdsman tried to organize them by horoscope. You chuckle quietly. You invented horoscopes. As night falls, you lie on a straw mat, your muscles aching in unfamiliar ways. Your dreams are restless. You see visions, not prophecies. Just memories, temples, sacrifices, music. You wake up before the sun. For the first time in thousands of years. Being human is exhausting. The second morning begins before even the roosters dare to dream. You blink awake in the grainy blue light of dawn. Head still full of straw and faint regrets. The straw isn't metaphorical. By the way, it's literally tangled in your hair. You used to have servants brush laurel leaves from your curls. Now you're pretty sure something small and sentient is nesting behind your ear. You drag yourself outside. The air is sharp and wet with dew. And a cow is already staring at you with a look that says, "Don't even try me today." Sunshine. Admetus meets you at the paddock gate. He's wearing a cloak too long for him. And he holds a ledger like it might bite. There's something disarmingly mortal about him, tired but trying. Overwhelmed yet gentle. The kind of man who double knots his sandals and then trips anyway. He nods at you. "How was your first night?" You shrug. "Uneventful. Except for the cow that tried to eat my sandals." He blinks. "Ah, yes. That's Penelope. Don't make eye contact." He's kidding. Probably. Admetus follows you into the pasture, pointing out the cows by name like someone introducing you to their very difficult relatives. "That's Hector. He thinks he's in charge. Avoid him. Over there is Calypso. She likes to kick fences. And the one with the patchy ear? That's Ajax. He headbutted a tax collector once." You realize quickly that this isn't just a herd. It's a bovine soap opera. And you, exiled sun god of light, poetry, and plague, are now their underpaid shepherd. As you trudge beside Admetus, he glances sideways. "You're not from around here, are you?" You pause. "You could say that." He nods slowly, like that answer satisfies some inner logic. "Well, you work hard. That's more than I can say for my cousins." You snort. "Nepotism?" Thessaly runs on it. You and Admetus fall into a quiet rhythm, walking side by side, occasionally redirecting a rogue cow or lobbing a half-hearted command. You try to project divine authority into your voice once. Just for fun. The cows ignore you. A goat wanders over from nowhere and bites your sleeve. Historians still argue whether Admetus truly knew he was hiring a god or simply saw someone radiating, "I just committed a crime in another realm," energy and decided to roll with it. In some versions of the myth, Apollo disguises himself. In others, Admetus simply treats everyone with grace, just in case they turn out to be immortal. Either way, it's oddly humbling to take orders from a mortal, especially one who says things like, "Remember to check the water trough. They've been flipping it again," and, "If Ajax charges at you, don't run, just sidestep." It's a dignity thing. You begin to see why the gods rarely fraternize. Mortals are complicated, messy, earnest. They also have a lot of feelings. Admetus, for example, really cares about his cows. Writes them poems level caring. You catch him once, crooning something vaguely iambic to a particularly irritable calf. You're both embarrassed. Neither of you speaks of it again. By midday, You've learned 3 things. 1. Herding is 90% walking in circles. 2. Cows have a secret grudge against Apollo. 3. Admetus might be the most decent employer you've ever had. He shares his lunch with you, figs and a hunk of bread, while you sit beneath a gnarled olive tree. You glance at him. You always treat your servants like this? He shrugs. My mother said the gods test us when we least expect it. You nearly choke on a fig. Later, as you guide the herd back toward the enclosure, a storm brews in the distance. You can feel the clouds gathering like a headache behind your eyes. You used to command weather. Now it ignores you unless you're caught without a cloak. A low rumble rolls over the hills. Admetus tenses. We should hurry. The cows don't care about the approaching rain. They graze with infuriating serenity. You raise your arms, instinctively summoning that old golden light, and nothing happens. Not even a spark. You sigh. Mortality is inconvenient. Together, you and Admetus coax, nudge, and occasionally bribe the herd toward the barn. By the time the rain begins, you're soaked to the skin. And not in the glamorous ocean sculpture of a god way. More like wet tunic, squeaky sandal kind of soaked. Back in the barn, you collapse onto a hay bale. Dripping, Admetus leans against the doorframe, hair plastered to his forehead. He glances over. You're good at this. You laugh, low and tired. No one's ever said that to me before. About cows. He smiles faintly. Maybe you were meant to be here. You look around, at the muddy floor, the suspiciously damp goat, the ceiling that leaks. You raise an eyebrow. Admetus grins. Or maybe it's a weird week for everyone. That night, as you dry off by the fire, a servant passes you a warm cup of something herbal and vaguely suspicious. You sip it anyway. A small part of you, buried deep beneath the pride and golden ego, wonders, could this punishment be something else? Not exile, not humiliation, but maybe a divine reminder of patience, of stillness, of the complicated, unglamorous beauty of simply being. And the cows? They're still jerks, but they're starting to move slightly less menacingly when you approach. Progress. By the 3rd morning, you no longer fight the sunrise. It arrives like an uninvited guest, relentless, bright, and much too loud. You sit up on your straw mat and stretch muscles you didn't even know mortals had. There's a dull ache in your back, a pinch in your neck, and an unsettling sense that one of the cows might have been in your dreams. You head outside to find the pasture already buzzing. A few other servants scurry past with feed, and the chickens are aggressively announcing their existence. Admetus isn't around this time, which means the herd is entirely your problem today. You grab your staff, your noble shepherd's staff, which has splinters in all the worst places, and make your way to the field. You can already hear them. The cows. They low in that deep, groaning way that says, "We know you're coming, and we're not impressed." And there they are, your divine punishment. Grazing like nothing matters, tails swishing, eyes judging. It's a chaotic assortment of beasts, some large and sleek, others squat and lopsided, one suspiciously foamy around the mouth. You'll name him Foamy later. For obvious reasons, you attempt to count them. You get to 12 before Ajax headbutts another cow, triggering a slow-motion bovine stampede that ruins everything. You start again. 15, 16. Is that one asleep standing up? No, it's just stubborn. Historians still argue whether this legendary herd was symbolic, maybe representing the chaos of mortality itself, or if ancient poets just found cattle inherently funny. And honestly, after 3 days with them, you get it. There's no poetry here, no divine orchestration, just flies, cow pies, and one calf that insists on chewing the strap of your sandal every time you turn around. You try to impose order. You call out names Admetus taught you. Calypso, Penelope, Ajax. Stop headbutting things. They ignore you completely. You try music next, plucking a few notes on a reed flute one of the other herders left behind. The cows look at you. One moos. Flatly. You could swear it's sarcastic. So instead, you walk among them. This is your domain now. A field filled with bad attitudes and worse smells. You adjust your pace, mirroring the cow's meandering rhythm. You learn to watch their ears, flicking when annoyed, twitching when alert. You notice that Calypso always follows Hector. That Penelope prefers the shade. And that Foamy, well, he's unpredictable at best. You guide them toward the upper meadow, where the grass is softer and the light slants just right. It's quiet up here. A soft wind brushes against your arms, lifting your hair, and for a moment, you almost feel divine again. Then one of the cows sneezes on you. Progress is slow. One refuses to cross a small ditch. Another just lies down and refuses to move. You attempt persuasion, then bribery, then mild threats. Nothing works. Eventually, you just sit beside it and wait. 10 minutes later, it gets up on its own, as if it made the decision. You've never felt so thoroughly outmaneuvered by livestock. Around midday, a local boy approaches with a bundle of herbs. He's maybe 10 years old. Barefoot, eyes wide, he stares at you like you're an exotic beetle. "You're the new cowherd," he says. Not a question. "I am. My uncle says you smell like gods. But you don't know how to tie a rope." You blink. He's not wrong. The boy hands you the herbs. "These help with hoof rot. Also, Ajax ate my sister's sandals. Can you stop him?" You nod solemnly. "I'll do my best." He runs off, leaving you with the faintest impression that your myth is already spreading. And not in the flattering way. The gods are used to statues and hymns. You're becoming campfire gossip. "Remember the time the new herder tripped in a cow pat?" Yeah, he glowed a little. Probably cursed. By afternoon, you finally have the herd loosely clustered near the stream. Some drink, others nap. Ajax glares at a tree like it owes him money. You lean on your staff and allow yourself to breathe. The sun warms your face. And for once, you don't feel the urge to command it. You just let it be. The breeze carries the scent of clover and pine, and your eyes drift closed, until a loud splash yanks you back. Foamy is in the stream. Not beside it, in it, and he's stuck. You race down the slope, sandals squelching. He's sunk deep into the mud, mooing dramatically. The other cows gather around like it's dinner theater. You wade in. The water's cold. Your tunic gets soaked again. You grab Foamy's rope halter and pull, bracing your feet in the muck. It takes every ounce of divine dignity not to scream when a fish slaps your ankle. After several grueling minutes, you manage to yank him free. He stumbles out of the water, shakes violently, and drenches you in mud. You stare at him. He blinks, then walks away. You are starting to understand why some deities just turn people into plants. Back at the barn, you clean off under a dribbling spout of cold water. A passing maid offers you a towel with the quiet resignation of someone who has done this 3 times already today. You dry your face and catch your reflection in a bronze dish. You look human, not tragic or transcendent, just tired. Tangled hair, muddy cheek, and a faint smile tugging at the corner of your mouth. It's ridiculous. And it's real. Later, as you settle into bed, you replay the day's absurdities. The cows, the mud, the boy with the herbs. Somewhere above, Olympus watches. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe that's the point. You don't know yet. But tomorrow, you'll find out if Foamy tries to swim again. By now, you've begun accepting that no part of your punishment will be dignified. If herding cows is the day shift, mucking stalls is the grim night watch. It's a task so earthy, so relentlessly humble, that even the laziest of gods would hesitate to delegate it to their most forgettable nymph. But it's your job now. You wake earlier than ever, before the roosters, before the mist lifts off the hills. The barn is dark and still. The only sound a slow, rhythmic chewing from somewhere deep inside. A cow snorts. You inhale and immediately regret it. The smell is hard to describe. It's not just barnyard, it's deeper. Like fermented hay, regret, and a hint of something prehistoric. You gag. Briefly. Then you square your shoulders. You have faced titans. You have strummed the strings of fate itself. Now you wield a pitchfork. It's heavier than expected. Mortals, you've learned. Don't design tools with gods in mind. The handle is worn smooth. Its edges stained from years of battle against manure. You grip it like a soldier would a spear. Only this time, the enemy is steaming. You approach the first stall. The cow inside watches you like it knows. You give it a curt nod. Don't make this weird. It does. Anyway, you start shoveling, and shoveling, and shoveling. By the fourth stall, you're sweating. By the sixth, you've renamed your pitchfork the Great Equalizer. There's straw in your mouth, mud on your knees, and an unspeakable something clinging to your sandal strap. You pause, leaning on the handle, breathless. Outside, the sky is beginning to lighten. Somewhere far off, a lyre note stirs in your memory, but here, the only music is the occasional plop of something unpleasant hitting the ground. A passing stable boy nods at you. Impressed. Didn't think you'd last. You grunt. Neither did I. He offers you a strip of dried fig. Don't eat it too fast. Your stomach's still got airs of Mount Olympus. You take a cautious bite. The taste is chewy. Possibly cursed. Still, you nod in thanks. He shrugs and returns to brushing down a donkey with better hair than yours. Historians still argue whether Apollo's barn labor punishment reflected a broader shift in how divinity was imagined as fallible. Flawed, able to experience toil. Some say it's an echo of the Greek value of catharsis, spiritual cleansing through earthly suffering. Others just think the poets enjoyed watching golden gods get humbled by cow dung. You, personally, suspect it's a bit of both. By midday, you've cleared all 12 stalls. Your arms ache, your knees are sore, and there's a strange, grim pride brewing in your chest. No one's applauding, no nymphs are composing odes. But you did it. You mop your forehead with your tunic. Bad idea. Now you smell worse. You stumble outside, blinking in the sun. Admetus stands nearby, talking to one of his advisors about grain yields and road taxes, king stuff. He notices you, raises an eyebrow. Done already? You nod, wiping your hands on your already ruined belt. He walks over, peering past you into the barn. You cleared every stall. You shrug. They won't muck themselves. He smiles. You know, most herdsmen stop after 4. Claim the cows are cursed, or that the straw spirits need their space. You glance back at the barn. Honestly, they might not be wrong. He chuckles. Well, thank you. And just like that, something shifts. Not between gods and mortals, but between two people in the same mud. You spend the afternoon hauling bales of hay, fixing a broken gate hinge, and trying, unsuccessfully, to bribe Hector into walking without headbutting the water barrel. You find that you don't mind the work as much. It's tangible, immediate, satisfyingly absurd. You pass a mirror, an old shard of polished bronze, later that day. You almost don't recognize yourself. Your hands are calloused. Your hair is wild. There's a smudge across your cheek that you don't even bother wiping off. And yet, you're lighter. You sleep deeply that night. A kind of sleep you haven't had in millennia. Dreamless, warm, anchored. You wake before dawn again, voluntarily. You don't even hate it. Something inside you is beginning to shift. Not in a thunderbolt, lightning epiphany kind of way. Just, quietly, like dust settling. But make no mistake, you're still Apollo. And when one of the cows kicks over the feed trough the next morning, you still threaten to turn it into a constellation out of spite. The fifth morning hits different, not because it's easier, but because you've now reached the stage where your body protests your life choices before you even sit up. There's a kink in your back from sleeping on straw. Your hands are blistered from the pitchfork, and your knees crackle like burned olive leaves every time you move. But you rise anyway, because you're Apollo, and you faced down Python the Chaos Serpent, composed symphonies that moved mountains, and illuminated the cosmos itself. Surely you can survive another day of bovine babysitting. The air is sharp with the tang of wet hay and something more pungent, cow breath. The cows are awake before you, standing in the field like furry omens. They always seem to know what kind of day it'll be. And today they look smug. You trudge past a co-op of chickens, who are rapidly becoming your least favorite chorus. One squawks aggressively and flaps at your head. You flinch. It is unclear who is winning this mortal experiment. The herd's already restless. Ajax is pacing in tight, angry circles. Penelope has found a spot to lie down and is refusing to move. Even when a beetle crawls directly across her nose, you've learned not to intervene too soon. The cows respond best to passive-aggressive observation. You start your rounds. Hooves get checked. Water buckets get topped off. A baby calf, recently named Grape by the local village kids, tries to eat your sleeve. You let it. Grape is new, soft, still gangly. Doesn't yet understand that the world is chaotic and full of angry geese. You envy that. While pushing open the gate, your foot slips on something unholy, and you come within inches of face planting into what can only be described as primordial ooze. You steady yourself and mutter, "I used to ride a sun chariot." A nearby herdsman chuckles. "Yeah? I used to be a dolphin." You pause. Did it involve too much responsibility? He grins. "Nah, the pay was better." You're beginning to suspect sarcasm is universal. Historians still argue whether Apollo's time with Admetus was literal, symbolic, or a metaphor for humility, like a god going on a working holiday to rediscover what it means to feel something. You're pretty sure it's all of the above, and none of it makes your boots smell better. Today, Admetus joins you again. His presence always has a calming effect on the herd. Maybe it's his tone, or maybe it's just that he carries oatcakes in his cloak and the cows have figured it out. He gestures toward the distant edge of the field. They've been wandering out near the pine groves. One of them kicked a beekeeper. You blink. Intentionally? Admetus shrugs. Hard to say. She said it felt personal. You sigh. Time to retrieve the rogue herd. The journey to the grove takes the better part of an hour. It's uphill, winding, and guarded by several goats who seem intent on challenging your masculinity. One stares at you while chewing a leaf. It's unsettling. You reach the pines and, sure enough, there's Hector, king of the cows, standing majestically in a bed of wildflowers, as if auditioning for a pastoral tapestry. Around him, a few other cows graze. One is munching on an abandoned beekeeper's veal. You gently retrieve it, just as you begin to turn the herd back toward the pasture. You hear it, a slow, low buzzing. You freeze. The bees. You look down. The veil in your hand? It smells like honey. Strongly. A moment later, you are being chased by bees through a pine grove, trailed by mooing cows who assume this is a new game. You, Apollo, once slayer of serpents and patron of medicine, are now sprinting through trees while waving a beekeeper's veil like a terrified bride. Eventually, you dive into a shallow creek and submerge your face. The bees, disgusted, move on. The cows saunter after you. Unimpressed, you sit up, dripping, muddy, and vaguely pine-scented. Admetus arrives a few minutes later. Eyebrows raised. Bees again? You nod. Just like last week. He offers a hand. You take it. The creek water squelches from your tunic. You walk back together in silence. The cows follow. Later that day, you finally take a moment alone. Behind the barn, there's a sliver of shade where moss grows thick, and a rock that's nearly flat, perfect for sitting. You strum a few chords on a lyre you've been secretly repairing from scraps. The notes are thin but pure. A few cows drift over. Grape lies down at your feet, ears flicking gently. You keep playing. The music is different now. Less divine, more grounded, less thunderbolt, more sunrise. It weaves through the air, not commanding attention, but offering something softer. A quiet, a kindness. And somewhere in the barn, Penelope finally moves. No reason, no drama, Just stands up and walks to the hay. Miracles still happen. They're just quieter now. By the 6th day, the village knows you. Not by name, no one dares ask, but by description. The glowing one with suspiciously perfect posture and no idea how to use a shovel. You've become a sort of local myth in progress. The cowherd who talks to the animals. The one whose voice seems to make the dogs pause mid-bark. The man who occasionally hums a melody and makes the air go quiet for a second too long. You didn't mean to stand out. If anything, you're trying hard not to glow. But you're still a god. Technically, even in mortal form, the divine clings to you like the scent of olive oil on a baker's robe. So when you walk into the village square one morning to pick up more feed, a chore that involves exactly 7 coins, a donkey cart, and a barter for cheese, you're greeted not with suspicion, but with that small-town stare. Everyone pretends they're not looking, but they're definitely looking. The blacksmith, arms like barrels, squints over his anvil. You the one Admetus took on? You nod. He smirks. Brave, or stupid. You smile politely. Both. A child tugs her mother's sleeve and whispers, "Mama, is that the one who talks to bees?" Her mother hushes her, like you might hear and curse their livestock. You don't mind. You'd curse their livestock only if they deserved it. At the feed shop, a man with a lazy eye and suspiciously clean fingernails leans over the counter. You're not from around here. That obvious? He laughs, a sharp, bark-like sound. You don't hunch. And your boots are still tied right. You're starting to learn that in Thessaly. Posture is considered suspicious. You load the feed onto the cart and start the walk back. It's long and hot, and the donkey pulling your cargo is named Melon. Melon has the work ethic of a sleeping cat. You try to coax him with a melody. He stops walking entirely and eats a flower instead. As you trudge along, villagers continue to observe you like a newly discovered species. Some offer subtle nods. A few give cautious greetings. One older woman hands you a fig and says, "For the music." Then she adds, "Don't tell my husband. He thinks you're an omen." You smile. "A good one?" She winks. "Depends on the cows." Historians still debate whether this myth reflects a real cultural interaction between foreign laborers and local customs, or whether it was just another poetic lens to explore humility through the divine. You, meanwhile, are just trying to make sure Melon doesn't fall asleep while walking. You return to the pasture to find Admetus waiting. He's got his sleeves rolled up and a worried look on his face. "You were gone a while," he says. "Melon took the scenic route." He chuckles. He does that. You unload the feed together, working in silence. Then Admetus says something odd. They think you're strange. You raise an eyebrow. They're not wrong. No, but they also think you're kind. You pause. That's not a word often used for you. Worshipped? Yes. Feared? Certainly. But kind? You don't know what to say. So you hand him a sack of oats. That night, you sit on the edge of the barn with a bowl of something hot and stew-like in your hands. You listen to the sounds of the village winding down, dogs barking, dishes clinking, children being bribed to go to bed. There's something cozy about it. Soft, even a little holy. Then you hear footsteps. A young man, maybe 17, stands a few feet away. Nervous, hair too short, hands fidgeting. You really a god? You blink. What? I mean, people say things. That you shine. That you talk like poems. That the cows don't kick you. You think about lying. About brushing it off with a joke. But instead you say, "I was. Once." He nods slowly. "What's it like, being not that anymore?" You look out across the field. The cows are quiet. The stars are beginning to prick holes in the sky. It's loud, you say, and messy. And nothing smells the way it should. He laughs. That sounds like being 17. You chuckle too. He sits beside you. For a while, neither of you speaks. Then he says, "My mother's sick. She likes your music. Says it makes the pain forget itself for a while." You glance at him. "Would she like a visit?" He shrugs. Embarrassed. She wouldn't believe it. Let her decide. You say. He nods, then stands and disappears into the night, leaving behind a silence that hums. You play your lyre that evening. Just a few soft notes. Barely more than a breath. But they carry. The cows shift. Somewhere, a window creaks open. The village listens. And for once, no one looks away. By the 7th day, you've discovered the one great mercy in all of this. Lunch. Not the food itself, though the figs are passable and the bread only slightly harder than mythic stone, but the break. The slow hour where no one expects anything of you. No cows to chase, no tools to carry, just you, a patch of shade, and the steady rhythm of being temporarily still. You found a spot in the woods just beyond the pasture. Not too far from the edge of Admetus's land, but far enough that the cows won't follow you unless bribed. The trees there are old, twisted in elegant spirals, their bark veined like marble. The moss is soft, and the dappled light makes everything feel like the setting for a vaguely melancholic ballad. It's also, apparently, occupied. You learn this the hard way when you settle in for your midday rest. Lean back against a tree, and hear someone giggle from inside the trunk. A giggle. You sit bolt upright. The tree quivers ever so slightly. Leaves rustle, but there's no breeze. You squint into the branches. Hello? A face, delicate, bark brown, framed in curls of lichen, emerges. You're not very observant for a god. You groan. Nymphs. Of course. She grins. You took my tree. I leaned on it. It's mine. You sigh. Of all the groves in Thessaly. She stretches lazily from the bark, forming more fully. Limbs like young willow branches. Eyes like river water. You're the sun one, right? Was. You correct. Currently moonlighting as a cowherd. She bursts into laughter. Somewhere nearby, a different tree laughs too. You look around. Are they all? Oh yes. This grove listens. You glance back at the tree you leaned on. Did I say anything embarrassing? Only that Penelope the cow has better instincts than most kings. Fair. The nymph settles beside you, eyeing your lunch with polite disdain. You know, we liked it better when you just drove the sun across the sky. You and me both. There's a pause. You chew your bread. She plays absent-mindedly with a fern. You hum a lot, she says. It helps. Not many mortals hum in key. You tilt your head. I'm not. She waves it off. I know, but the cows think you are. That catches your attention. You talk to them? She shrugs. We talk to everything. You stare at her. She shrugs again. They like you. They think you're soft. It's a compliment. You lean back. I've been sneezed on, kicked, ignored, and possibly judged by a goat. That's their version of affection? They don't trust ease. Neither do we. She leans closer. You've got something strange about you. Not just divine. Something quiet. You smile. Just slightly. Mortality. Is that what this is? She murmurs. Poking your shoulder. Feels more like melancholy and hay fever. You laugh, a full, unexpected laugh. She seems pleased with herself. A breeze stirs the leaves. The trees shiver. A branch drops a pine cone exactly on your head. Uncalled for. You mutter. Don't blame me, she says. That was Alder. He thinks you walked too loud. You toss the pine cone back. He should try walking with hooves chasing him. The conversation wanders. She tells you stories of travelers who slept beneath her branches, some noble, some awful, some both. You tell her about the time you convinced Hermes to steal wine from Dionysus and blame it on a turtle. She laughs so hard she nearly dissolves into moss. Historians still debate whether nymphs were imagined as literal spirits of nature or metaphorical embodiments of the Greek relationship to wilderness. But as you sit in that grove, chewing your bread and dodging sarcastic trees, it doesn't feel like metaphor. It feels like company. Eventually, she stretches and begins to vanish back into her bark. Come again, but maybe bring better bread. I'll steal from the kitchen. Good. As she melts back into the trunk, she pauses. And Apollo? Yes? The cows like the songs. Even the weird one about olives. I improvised that. They know. That's why they like it. She disappears, and the grove settles. You sit for a while longer. The sun warming your shoulders. A distant cow lowing on the breeze. The world is quieter here. But not empty. It listens. It remembers. You hum. Soft. Off-key on purpose. And from somewhere deep in the forest, a tree chuckles. The 8th morning begins with a low, vibrating thud that rattles the barn doors and echoes all the way into your spine. You sit up, instinctively bracing for a chariot crash or some divine mishap, only to remember, there are no celestial events scheduled for today. Just Hector. He's decided it's a good morning to challenge the water trough to a duel. You arrive at the paddock just in time to see him rear up and slam his front hooves down, splashing half the water supply across the yard. The other cows scatter. Foamy flees into a fence. Ajax looks on like he's taking notes. You sigh and walk toward him, staff in hand, already negotiating with yourself about how many divine rules you'd actually be breaking by temporarily turning him into a fig tree. Hector stomps once more for emphasis, then snorts in your direction. Easy, you murmur. It's too early for existential rebellion. He flicks an ear but doesn't move. You try your usual tactics, offering grain, using a calm voice, standing very still so as not to trigger his rage-based muscle memory. Nothing works. Then you get an idea. A stupid one. But you're tired. And you're Apollo. And when in doubt, music. You return to the barn and fetch your lyre, the rebuilt, half-mortal instrument cobbled together from a broken cart, spare strings, and at least one hairpin from a very confused kitchen maid. It's not grand, but it makes noise. You return to the field, sit a few feet from Hector, and begin to play. It starts soft, just a few plucked notes. A minor progression with a hint of lullaby. Something about it floats over the dust and heat like cool water. The cows glance over, curious. Hector does not, so you change it up. Add rhythm, build a melody that sways. Ancient and slow, you hum under your breath, letting the tone do what words never could. Hector twitches, his ear turns toward you. A small victory. You keep going, leaning into a motif you used once in a hymn for Demeter. Something about wheat and storms and the return of spring. The air stills, even Ajax stops pacing. Hector turns, taking a cautious step closer. And then, a sneeze. Not from you, not from Hector. Foamy. Of course. The sound is ridiculous, explosive, wet. Hector startles, bolts sideways, and crashes into a cart of freshly cleaned blankets. You wince. Ajax, inspired, charges after him. You drop the lyre. It lands unharmed, miraculously, in a tuft of grass. Meanwhile, a minor stampede unfolds in the yard, complete with dust clouds, startled squawks from chickens, and one confused goat who decides to join the chaos for sport. You grab your staff and jump into the fray. Penelope, left. Ajax, not the bucket. Grape, how did you get on the roof? It takes 20 minutes to restore order. Another 10 to coax Grape down. By the end of it, you're filthy, panting, and one sleeve short, don't ask, and the lyre is slightly damp from an unexpected encounter with a watering trough. Still, you hold it up, eyeing it grimly. Don't take this personally, you say, but next time I'm bringing a drum. Later, as you wipe grime from your face, Admetus arrives, chewing a piece of something that might be dried turnip. He looks around at the now settled herd. Rough morning? You nod. He spots the lyre. You tried music again. Briefly. Until nature intervened. He chuckles. Then sits beside you on a log. My uncle used to play the flute to calm horses. Said it worked, unless they hated the tune. You sigh. I think I just have a difficult audience. You're not the only one, he says, and tosses you a small cloth bundle. Inside? Fresh bread and cheese. You blink. What's this for? For trying. It's the nicest thing anyone said to you in days. Historians still argue whether the myth of Apollo calming beasts with music was symbolic of divine order conquering nature, or simply a poetic exaggeration passed down by shepherds with a flair for drama. Either way, your performance this morning was more comedy than epic. That afternoon, you sit under the same tree where you first met the nymph. She doesn't appear, but the breeze seems to laugh at you anyway. You pluck the lyre again, soft this time. No audience, no goal, just music for the wind. The notes are uneven, a bit muddy, but honest. A leaf falls, grape wanders by and lies beside you. You keep playing. You didn't plan on falling in love. It's not exactly on your punishment itinerary, and certainly not written into your current job description. But love, as you've learned over countless eons, never waits for appropriate scheduling. It arrives like summer lightning, sudden, warm, and slightly alarming. It starts, as all inconvenient romances do, with a look. You're tending to the troughs, again, when you first see her. Alcestis. She's standing in the garden behind Admetus's modest palace. Her arms full of rosemary and wild mint. Her hair caught in the late morning sun. She isn't dressed like a princess, no gold thread, no ivory combs. Just a plain gown and hands stained green from tending the herbs. You glance up, half distracted by the stubbornness of the trough's lid. And time pauses. Just a blink, but it's enough. She looks over. You look away. You're Apollo. You've been adored, worshipped, sculpted in marble by the best of them. But this is different. Alcestis does not worship. She notices. And then she returns to her garden. Humming softly, utterly unfazed. You return to your trough. The next time you cross paths, it's in the kitchen. She's laughing, genuine, unrestrained, at something one of the older maids says about pickled onions. The sound curls around your ribs. You're carrying a bucket of fresh milk and you nearly drop it. She turns toward you, nods. That's it, a nod, but somehow it sets the back of your neck on fire. You flee to the barn. Ajax, sensing weakness, tries to bite your tunic. You let him. Historians still argue whether Apollo ever truly loved Alcestis, or whether his affections were exaggerated by later poets trying to add depth to a pastoral tale. But standing in that barn, hay clinging to your sleeve, you know what you feel. You want to be near her. Not to impress, not to dazzle, just to be. You begin finding excuses. You, accidentally, pass by the garden more often. You volunteered to haul firewood past the courtyard steps. You offer, awkwardly, to fix a broken door latch outside the pantry. A job you complete so poorly that a servant has to do it again. But every time, she's there. And every time, she sees through it. Not in a cruel way. In a kindly bored way. Like someone who's seen 1,000 storms and knows which ones pass quickly. Then one evening, after the cows are settled and the stars have started to flicker on, she finds you. You're sitting on the low stone wall near the stream, playing your patched together lyre. The melody is simple, aimless. She doesn't speak, just sits beside you and listens. After a while, she says, "You don't play like someone from here." You pause. "Is that good or bad?" "Good," she says, "but sad." You nod. Mortality is surprisingly full of sadness. She glances at you. "Are you dying?" You smile. "No, just grounded." She laughs softly. "I knew it. You've got that divine exile look." You glance at her. You're not very surprised. "I grew up hearing stories about gods hiding in fields, turning into swans, making trouble." You're not subtle. You set the lyre down. "I didn't want to fall in love." She looks at you, eyes steady. "Neither did I." The silence that follows is thick, but not heavy. The kind that holds space. That says, "I see you, and I'm staying anyway." You reach for her hand, and she lets you. Just like that, the world shifts, quietly, without ceremony. No thunder, no lightning, just the soft click of two lives intersecting. You meet her again, over the next few days. In quiet places, behind the stables, In the garden, once in the orchard, where she throws an apple at your back and laughs when you nearly trip. You talk, not about Olympus, not about fate, about soil, bees, her fear of thunderstorms, your dislike of figs with too many seeds. You listen, you learn, and slowly, something opens in you, a tenderness long forgotten, a desire not to impress, but to belong, not to be worshipped, but to be understood. One night, she asks, "How long will you stay?" You hesitate. "Until I'm called back." "Will you want to go?" You don't answer. Because you don't know. For now, you play her songs. Simple ones. On your mismatched lyre. And she listens like it's enough. While you're falling in love above ground. Far beneath your dusty sandals. A god stirs in the underworld. Hades, lord of the dead, collector of contracts, keeper of silence. He's not amused. You've been on his radar ever since you vaporized Asclepius for getting a bit too enthusiastic with resurrection spells. It wasn't personal, just business. Balance, as the fates constantly drone on, must be maintained, but then Zeus banished you. Not Asclepius. And now Hades has a backlog of angry souls and a growing suspicion that Olympus is losing its grip. And now? Now you're playing the lyre in a garden. Flirting with a mortal princess like your exile is a summer sabbatical. He hears about it, of course. Spirits whisper, nymphs murmur. Somewhere in his court, a breeze smells like thyme and cow dung, and he sighs heavily into his chalice of molten bronze. Cut to you, currently attempting to repair a broken fence post while humming a new melody you've named Alcestis #3, Soft Eyes. Sharp elbows. You're in a good mood. The herd has been mostly cooperative. Grape didn't eat anything poisonous. And Alcestis slipped you a small woven cord earlier that morning, saying simply, "For your wrist," to remind you not to trip over your own feet. You didn't take it off. But beneath your feet, the shadows shift. Back in the underworld, Hades sends a polite message. Now, mortals don't really receive messages from Hades, not unless they've recently become dead. But you, being divine-ish, feel it. It starts as a chill. A tug in your stomach. That subtle sense that you're being observed by something that neither blinks nor breathes. You straighten up, glance around. No cows are panicking. Ajax is asleep. Even Hector is chewing quietly. Still, the breeze feels colder. Later that night, as you return to the barn after a walk with Alcestis, you find a crow on your windowsill. It's not moving, not blinking. Its eyes shimmer like polished obsidian. You exhale. "Ah, him." The crow doesn't reply, but it doesn't leave. You sit beside it on the ledge, watching the moonlight spill across the pasture. After a long silence, you murmur, "She's kind." The crow shifts one claw. "I know I'm not meant to interfere." A flick of feathers, barely noticeable. "I haven't." You lie. "Not yet." The crow finally blinks, once, slowly, and flies off. You sit there for a long time, heart heavy. Historians still argue whether Hades' role in this myth was literal or symbolic. Was the underworld's reaction a divine bureaucratic measure or a metaphor for looming consequence? Did the Greeks see love with mortals as rebellion, or simply as another way gods tried and failed to be human? What you know is this: Hades is watching. And if you care for Alcestis, and gods help you, you do, then this game just changed. The next morning, you find yourself more alert. Every shadow stretches longer. Every gust of wind hums lower. The cows sense it too. Penelope refuses to leave the barn. And Hector kicks over the grain barrel twice. Admetus, oblivious, is preoccupied with a visiting dignitary who wants to buy 6 of the herd for ceremonial purposes. You politely suggest he sell Ajax and Foamy. He politely suggests you keep your job. But Alcestis notices. Of course she does. She corners you near the herb shed. "You're different today." You nod. "I got a message." "From Olympus?" "From somewhere. Deeper." She frowns. "Are you leaving?" "Not yet." She reaches for your hand. Holds it. But soon. You don't answer. Instead, you press something into her palm. It's a tiny bronze pin. From your old belt, once bright with sun-etched glyphs. Now worn, half-tarnished, mortal-looking. A charm? She asks. A reminder. She turns it in her hand, then looks up at you. Of what? That I came here for punishment. You say softly, but I stayed because of you. You don't kiss her. Not yet. The air is too heavy. The moment, too fragile. Later that night, the crow returns. This time, it speaks. Not in words. In a sudden draft that snuffs your lantern. In a gust that slams the barn doors. You stand there, breath held. And somewhere deep inside, something ancient stirs. The knowledge that nothing escapes balance forever. You whisper to the dark. I won't break the rules. The silence replies. You already have. The 11th day begins in a haze. You're tired, achy, and quietly stressed about the invisible ticking clock now following you around like a shadow. The crow hasn't returned, but you know Hades doesn't need repetition to make a point. And then Penelope steps on your foot. Hard. You don't cry out. You don't curse the heavens. You just inhale, deeply, through your nose, and slowly, very slowly, count to 10. The herd has been more difficult lately. As if they, too, feel the shifting currents of your fate. Ajax is moody. Hector has resumed his vendetta against the trough. Grape has decided he's afraid of butterflies. You haven't had a moment's peace in days. This morning, you got 3 goals. 1. Fix the south fence. 2. Clean the hooves of every cow without being kicked. 3. Avoid divine overreaction. You almost succeed. Almost. The incident happens just after midday. When the sun is at its highest and the flies are at their boldest. You're kneeling in the dust. Trying to clean Hector's hooves, no small feat. Considering he has the patience of a toddler in a temple, and you very politely ask him to stop shifting his weight. He does not. You tug the hoof pick from your belt and gently try again. He swats a fly with his tail, misses, and smacks you full in the face. You freeze. Hector turns his head, completely unbothered. You close your eyes. Then he steps backward, onto your hand, and leans. Something snaps. Not physically. Mentally. You stand, back straight, eyes blazing. And in that exact moment, every ounce of divine light you've tried to suppress begins leaking out through your skin. The sky dims. The air thickens. A nearby bird drops from a tree. Stunned. Your voice, when it comes, is low and ancient. Hector, I swear by the river Styx, if you do not move your hoof in the next 5 seconds, I will turn you into a very confused statue and place you outside a latrine. The entire field goes still. Hector blinks. He steps off your hand. The cows do not moo. They do not shuffle. They simply freeze, like a bunch of guilty toddlers who just watched one of their own knock over a vase. You exhale slowly. The golden light recedes from your fingertips. The breeze returns. Somewhere, a bird cautiously chirps. You sink onto a rock. Head in your hands, heart thudding. You almost lost control. And not in the harmless, oops I summoned a storm way. In the start carving your own myth kind of way. Admetus finds you like that an hour later. He doesn't ask questions. Just hands you a cup of water and sits beside you in silence. After a long pause, you say, I nearly turned Hector into a landmark. Admetus hums. Would have saved me a lot of feed. You laugh, sharp, but real. Then softer. I forgot what it feels like. That old heat. Admetus nods. The power? No. The anger. Another silence. Then he says, you're doing better than you think. You stare at him. I nearly cursed a cow. You didn't. That's not a high bar. Admetus. He smiles faintly. Maybe not. But most men never try to rise above their worst moment. You look away. I don't want to be feared. Then don't be. Be tired. Be humbled. Be here. Historians still debate whether this story is meant to illustrate divine restraint or foreshadow the price of unchecked emotion. Some versions claim you did turn a cow to stone and had to beg Demeter to reverse it. Others suggest you only imagined the threat, letting mortals believe it was real to maintain order. But you know the truth. You were this close. That evening, you returned to the pasture with bandaged hands and a cracked pride. The cows greet you cautiously. Even Hector keeps a respectful distance. You sit among them as the sun dips low. The light is softer now, filtered through dusk and dust. Grape comes over, nuzzles your shoulder. You let him, and in that quiet moment, surrounded by the beasts that have become your burden and your teachers, you murmur, "I am not the same God who arrived here." No one answers, but the breeze seems to agree. You wake to a sound you've come to dread: silence. Not peace, not tranquility, the wrong kind of silence. Too quiet. No grumbling cows. No early morning hooves tapping impatiently. No distant moo of Grape demanding his first breakfast and pre-lunch treat. You leap from your cot, rush barefoot across the yard, and stop cold at the paddock. Empty. All of them, gone. The gate hangs open, swinging lazily in the breeze like it has no regrets. A few tufts of fur snagged on the fence mock you in the dawn light. And at the base of the fence? Hoofprints. But not just cow hoofprints. You bend closer. They're cloven, smaller, wild, unmistakable. Satyrs. You exhale. Unbelievable. Of all the days. Of all the mythical beings in all of Thessaly. It had to be them. You knew they were nearby. Drunk woodland troublemakers have a way of making themselves known. You just didn't expect them to steal your herd. You march toward the forest with the speed and fury of a god who's already had to clean hooves this week and will not tolerate extra nonsense. The forest greets you with birdsong and treachery. Within minutes, you hear it. The faint off-key piping of pan flutes. Laughter. And hooves. Not cow. Not goat. Satyr. You follow the sound until you find them in a clearing. Your cows are there. So are 6 satyrs. They're dancing. Not well. One is trying to balance on Hector's back while playing 2 pipes at once. Another is weaving flower crowns and placing them on the heads of utterly confused livestock. Grape is licking spilled wine off a rock with wild enthusiasm. You step into the clearing. The music stops. The satyrs freeze, caught mid-misdeed like children who've broken into the temple wine. One of them, a lanky specimen with a lopsided grin and grape juice on his chin, waves. Apollo, you're just in time for the pageant. You fold your arms. This is not a pageant. This is a felony. The satyrs glance at one another. The one holding a daisy chain clears his throat. We borrowed them, very gently. You drugged them with wine. We shared. You point at Penelope, who is lying on her back with daisies stuffed into her nostrils. She does not look like she consented. The tallest satyr, perhaps the unofficial ringleader, shrugs. She headbutted the keg first. It felt like an invitation. You exhale through your nose. A slow, controlled breath to keep from turning anyone into a shrub. Give them back, you say. We will, the leader says brightly. But you must admit, they're excellent dancers. You take a step forward. Your skin begins to shimmer with heat. The grass at your feet wilts slightly. They pause. Another step. The satyrs drop everything. Okay, they yelp, scrambling to herd the cows. Who protest as only mildly tipsy cows can. Grape, to his credit, finishes licking the wine rock before trotting after them. It takes nearly an hour to get the cows back in order. The satyrs help, though with a great deal of unnecessary humming and prancing. One insists on riding Ajax, one last time, and is firmly kicked for his trouble. Once the herd is safely back inside the paddock, you turn to the satyrs. Why, you ask, why steal cows? The tallest one blinks. We were bored. That's it? That's most of it. Also, you never visit anymore. You rub your temples. I'm exiled. I'm not throwing parties. He nods. We noticed. You've gotten dusty. You don't dignify that with a reply. Instead, you say, if you ever touch my herd again, I will turn every last one of you into shepherd's pie. The satyrs bow, not in reverence, just dramatic apology. Then they prance off into the woods, giggling and tossing grape stems like confetti. Historians still argue whether this part of the myth existed at all. Some claim it was added later, a comedic interlude to lighten the tale. Others insist the satyrs represent wild temptation, chaos, disorder, the urge to abandon duty. You don't care either way. All you know is that Penelope now smells like elderberry wine. Hector is glaring at birds. And Grape seems to be hungover. Back in the pasture, Admetus finds you combing wine's sticky burrs out of Hector's tail. He lifts an eyebrow. Do I want to know? You grunt. Satyrs. He nods slowly. Say no more. You both work in silence for a while. Then he says, it's strange. I never thought anyone could manage that herd. You glance up. Neither did they. He chuckles. Well, now they don't just follow you. They trust you. You shrug. Because I didn't let them become performance art? No, he says, smiling. Because you came back for them. That night, you sit in the barn under a lantern glow. The cows are quieter, tired. Some still wear the faint scent of crushed flowers and regret. You pull out your lyre. You play something soft, slow, a tune for steadiness, for returning. Even Ajax listens. You're not just a god playing mortal anymore. You're their shepherd. And, miraculously, that's enough. The cows are behaving today. Almost suspiciously so. Hector hasn't kicked anything since dawn. Foamy's lying quietly in the shade, chewing cud like he's found inner peace. Even Ajax, ever the contrarian, hasn't attempted to escape once. You're halfway through clearing the barn when the silence starts to feel ominous. Then Admetus calls your name. His voice is different, tight, careful. You step out into the sun and see him standing just past the garden wall. Hands clasped behind his back like someone bracing for a funeral or a confession. His face is drawn, eyes shadowed with the weight of too many thoughts. Not the face of a king entertaining guests. Or reviewing tax scrolls. No, this is a man burdened. I need to speak with you, he says, with that practiced calm people use when their world is cracking under their feet. You nod. He walks with you toward the olive grove. No one else around. Even the breeze has gone quiet. Finally, he says it. My time is almost up. You stop walking. He keeps going. When I was young, I angered the Fates. Not deliberately. Just carelessly. I boasted. Said I would live longer than any king in Thessaly. Said I'd outwit them. You inhale. They don't appreciate that sort of thing. No, he agrees. They don't. He explains. With that same distant, tired tone. How a deal was struck. He could live beyond his allotted thread, but only if someone would agree to die in his place when the time came. Not a stranger. Not a servant. Someone close. Someone who loved him. You already know where this is going. No one would, he says quietly. Not my friends. Not my council. Not even my brothers. He looks away, jaw clenched. But Alcestis said yes. Of course she did. Alcestis, with her quiet laughter and stubborn loyalty. With her strong hands and thorny heart. The kind of woman who doesn't flinch in the face of gods. Or cows. Or fate. You feel something cold settle behind your ribs. When? You ask. Soon. Days. Maybe. The signs are clear. You sit on a fallen olive log. The bark rough beneath your hands. He paces. Then stops. I didn't ask her to. I begged her not to. But she said it was her choice. You can't speak. Your throat is sand. I didn't know what I was agreeing to. Back then, he whispers. I thought death was distant. Hypothetical. But now it's here. And I can't bear the cost. You nod. Slowly. That's what it means to be mortal. Historians still debate whether the story of Alcestis is a cautionary tale about hubris. Or a romantic tragedy about sacrifice. Some versions paint Admetus as cowardly. Others portray him as simply human. A man unready for the price of life extended. But none of that matters now. Because Alcestis is going to die. And you, Apollo, have watched empires rise. have heard the prayers of men and monsters alike. You've caused plagues, healed cities, sung stars into being, but you can't stop time. Not without breaking a very large, very dangerous rule. That night, you can't sleep. The cows are restless, as if they sense the shift. Great bleats softly in his sleep. Hector kicks once, aimlessly, like he's dreaming of greener pastures. You stare at the rafters and remember what it felt like to be feared, to be untouchable. And then you think of Alcestis, her smirk, her braid tucked behind one ear, the way she always says your name like she's daring you to lie. You can't lose her, not to the fates, not to a debt born of pride and old stories. So you rise, you step out under the stars. You walk barefoot through the field, past the dozing cows, past the orchard, into the edge of the forest. You lift your hand, and call them, the fates. Not loudly, just enough. The world stills. A leaf freezes mid-fall. And you feel them watching. You bow your head. I know the rules. No answer. I also know mercy. Stillness. Dense. Heavier than silence. I'm not asking you to undo the debt. Only to delay it. A pause. Then a whisper. At what cost? You close your eyes. Mine. The whisper curls back. You cannot die. Then bind me. You say. Delay the exchange. Give me time to fix this. The whisper turns soft. Amused. You never change. You wait. Finally, a breeze returns. And with it, a single thread. Thin. Gold. Floating into your palm. You stare at it. Fragile. Powerful. A promise. Back in the pasture. The cows lift their heads. They don't know what's changed. But they know something has. And so do you. Morning comes slowly, as if the sky itself hesitates to pull back the night. You return to the barn with bare feet, hay tangled in your tunic, and the weight of a divine promise curled around your wrist in the form of that glimmering thread. The cows rise one by one. Foamy sneezes. Ajax frowns at the sunrise. All seems normal, but you know better. You've made a deal. With the fates. Not the easy kind. The sort you make over ambrosia and jest. Wagering a poet's success or the lifespan of a rooster. No, this was ancient, binding, real. You offered part of your power, part of your light, in exchange for time. And they gave it. Not forever. Just long enough. A single window. A pause in the script. A moment in which to try. And try you will. That afternoon, you seek out Alcestis. She's pruning the grapevines in the back garden. Sleeves rolled, humming to herself. She hears your footsteps and turns, but before she can speak, you raise your hand. I know, you say. She stares, then sets down her shears. You sit beside her in the dirt, knees brushing vines. How long have you known? You ask. She shrugs. A while. I'm not as naive as I look. You smile. No, you never were. Silence hangs there, comfortable, then sharp. I won't let you do it. You say, you shouldn't have to. She raises an eyebrow. Who else should? You open your mouth, then close it again. Admetus made the deal, she says, matter of fact, but he's not a cruel man. Just a foolish one. He regrets it. I know. That doesn't change the thread. You reach into your pocket. Hold out the golden strand. This might. Her eyes widen, just slightly. That's theirs. You nod. What did you offer? My light. Temporarily. My name. In silence. My return. Delayed. She looks at you. You're serious. Have I ever been anything but? You threatened to turn Hector into a shrub 2 days ago. A deeply serious threat. She laughs. A quick burst of sunlight. Then quiets. Why? You pause. The olive trees sway gently behind her. A bee drifts past your ear. The world waits. Because, you say slowly, you made me human. She tilts her head. I've lived 1,000 lives. You go on. Sung songs that moved gods. Crafted plagues that emptied cities. Watched stars form and fall. But nothing ever made me feel like kneeling until I saw you drop a whole basket of figs and mutter something unrepeatable. She covers her mouth to keep from laughing. You continue. Softer now. You brought me down from the sky. And I didn't hate it. I didn't miss Olympus. I just wanted more figs. Her hand touches yours. You set the thread gently in her palm. Keep it, you say, just for now. It'll glow when the time comes. And if it glows too soon, I'll intervene. Her voice is quiet. They won't like that. No, you agree. But they've tolerated worse. From you? You grin. From Dionysus. I'm a saint compared to that wine-stained menace. She laughs again. Later that day, you meet with Admetus in the olive grove. He looks like he hasn't slept. His hands shake slightly as he pours wine into 2 wooden cups. You take one. Don't drink. I offered a delay. You tell him. A chance to rewrite the ending. He stares. They listened? Reluctantly. But yes. He closes his eyes. Thank you. You should be telling her that. I have. But it's not enough. It never is. Historians often gloss over this part, preferring to leap from the sacrifice to the salvation. But it's this part that matters. The messy. Mortals scramble to make amends before the clock strikes. You spend the next few days quietly weaving your plan. You seek out a grove where time flows slower, marked by ancient stones and moss-covered altars. You return there nightly, speaking low to things older than the gods. The ground listens. Meanwhile, Alcestis lives as she always has. Fiercely, joyfully. She laughs louder, works longer, teaches a servant how to tell if milk is sour without smelling it, a trick involving marjoram. Somehow, she doesn't ask about the thread again, but you catch her glancing at it. At night, you play for her, old songs, new ones written with dusty fingers and tired hope. She hums along, and when you sleep, you dream less of Olympus and more of vine-covered porches, of stubborn cows, of someone brushing dirt from your sleeve. You're still a god, but less than before, and somehow, more. A week passes. Then 2. The thread Alcestis keeps tucked in her robe doesn't glow. Not yet. You check it sometimes, not by touching it, but by watching her, the way she smiles, the way her shoulders lift when she laughs. You know the thread hasn't stirred because she hasn't changed. But others have noticed a shift. Admetus, in particular, seems determined to rewrite his fate by sheer force of awkwardness. You catch him practicing speeches in the barn, loud, impassioned declarations of love and regret, interrupted only by Hector knocking over a barrel in protest. It all comes to a head the day the Thessalian court arrives. You don't see them coming. One moment you're elbow deep in Fomi's latest hoof emergency. And the next, a trumpet blares from the palace gates like someone's trying to wake Zeus from a nap. You wipe your hands on your tunic, pointlessly, and make your way up the hill. There, arrayed in far too much velvet and dramatic eyeliner for this kind of weather, is a delegation from the neighboring city. Apparently, they heard rumors of a wedding. You squint at Admetus, who's adjusting his ceremonial belt with all the grace of a man trying to put on socks during an earthquake. You're getting married? You ask. He winces. Yes, I mean, again, a renewal. Ah, you say, the grand romantic gesture of remarriage to a woman already legally obligated to tolerate you. She deserves something beautiful, he mutters. After everything. You nod. That's fair. But why are there 2 priests setting up altars? Admetus smiles, sheepishly. You blink. No. Just a symbolic thing. No. She asked. You look past him, and there she is. Alcestis. In a dress the color of almond blossoms. Hair braided with olive leaves. And that same half-smile she always wears when she knows something you don't. Why am I getting married today? You ask. Trying very hard not to panic. She saunters over. Because I thought we should do this before the thread glows. In case. You gape. You want a symbolic wedding? With me? She shrugs. Technically, it's more of an anti-funeral. Romantic. She raises an eyebrow. You in or out? Sunshine? You glance around. Ajax is headbutting one of the royal carpets. Grape is trying to eat a floral arrangement. A satyr has somehow gotten into the wine again and is attempting to dance with a goose. You sigh. Fine, but I refuse to wear a laurel crown. You already are. You reach up, touch your head. Laurel. You mutter. Cheeky forest spirits. Historians love this part. They call it the day of double vows. 2 altars, 2 couples. One goat who wandered through both ceremonies and was declared a blessed omen after sneezing during the kiss. Admetus recites his vows first. Earnest, shaky, but from the heart. Alcestis watches him with that rare softness she reserves for moments when no one is looking. Then it's your turn. You stand beneath a garlanded archway that smells faintly of cows and thyme and say the words she gave you herself. I have walked as a god, lived among stars, but nothing has steadied me like you. She says, I have danced with death. I will again, but you are the song I chose. It's not legal. It's not even technically divine. But the wind stirs when she speaks. And the golden thread, still tucked in her sash, glimmers faintly, not with warning. With agreement. The feast that follows is, frankly, a disaster. Someone undercooks the bread. A minstrel plays a flute solo that lasts 8 minutes too long. The wine runs out halfway through and has to be replaced with watered cider. But none of that matters. Because you're sitting beside her. And every time you look her way, she's still there. That night, after the guests depart and the candles burn low, she takes your hand in hers. I meant it, she whispers. Whatever comes. I know, you say, and so did they. She tilts her head. The fates. You clarify. They saw this. And? You smile. They didn't stop it. Later, as you lie beside her, the barn animals quiet in the fields. You think about all the weddings you've witnessed. Grand, opulent, god-tier affairs with thunderbolts and 3-course hymns. None of them looked like this. And none of them mattered more. You close your eyes, and dream not of Olympus, but of time in her hair and mud on your boots. You wake to thunder, not the dramatic, world-ending kind that splits mountains and sends mortals diving under tables. But the low, simmering roll of someone clearing their divine throat. Zeus. You sit upright, heart already pounding. Outside, the sky is entirely too blue for thunder. The clouds are behaving suspiciously well. The cows are unusually quiet. Even Ajax is standing still. Head slightly bowed, like he knows. You stand, step outside, and there he is. Not in full tempest form. No lightning bolts or eagle sidekicks. Just Zeus, as much as he ever is just anything, dressed like a traveling merchant. Sandals dusty, hair tied back in a half-hearted braid. He looks like someone pretending to be mortal and barely bothering to sell the illusion. You cross your arms. Father. Apollo. He says, nice fence work. Rustic. You raise an eyebrow. Planning to inspect the roof next? Depends. He replies. Planning to explain yourself? You sigh and gesture toward the pasture. Walk with me. As you move together past the grazing cows, each one suddenly behaving like a prize-winning statue, Zeus scans the field. You've done well, he says. Finally. I expected you to torch the place by week 2. I considered it. Then Grape chewed through the torch handle. A long pause. Then Zeus chuckles. That sounds like your punishment's working. You don't reply. Not yet. He stops walking beside the stream, glances around, and drops the disguise. Just a shimmer. A pulse of the old power returning. His voice changes too. Deeper. Heavier. You made a deal with the fates. You nod. Yes. You gave them your light. For time. For her. Another nod. He folds his arms. Why? You stare at the water. At the reflection of a sun god who no longer shines quite the same. Because she was willing to give up everything for a man who didn't deserve it. And because I finally understood why. Zeus squints. That's not your job. No, you agree. It was easier when I only had to play music and strike down plague targets. He grunts. You're getting sentimental. Might be contagious. She reminded me I could be more. Zeus is quiet for a long while. The breeze stirs the reeds. Then he says, "You broke protocol. I bent it. You've interfered with a mortal death. I delayed it. And now half the gods think you're going soft." You shrug. "Let them." He studies you. "You know how this ends." Apollo. You nod. "I do. And I'm still choosing it." Another silence stretches, so tense the very air holds its breath. Finally, Zeus sighs. "You always were my most dramatic child." You smile. "Better than being the loudest." He grins, just faintly. "You want Olympus back?" You hesitate. And that pause, that one unguarded moment, is your answer. Zeus sees it, and to your surprise, he nods. "Stay. For now. But when this is done, when the thread burns, you will return." I understand. He starts walking again. Slower now. "You'll never be fully mortal." Apollo. Not really. You'll outlive them. Watch them fade. Even her. I know. Then why do this? You look toward the grove where Alcestis is likely tending vines or lecturing Grape about chewing fig baskets. And you say, "Because for the first time in my entire existence, I want to be there while someone grows old." Zeus stops. Turns. There's something different in his expression, something ancient and fleeting. Like the first dawnlight over the sea. "You're learning," he says. "Is that allowed?" He chuckles. "Once. Maybe. But don't get used to it." He begins to fade, into mist, into sky, into memory. But before he disappears completely, he tosses something over his shoulder. It lands with a soft clink at your feet. You bend down. A laurel leaf. Golden. Your old emblem. But now, tarnished on the edges. Real. You smile. And return to the field. Where Alcestis waits. Not with worship, but with wine. And a list of chores. And a crooked smile that makes even gods forget the stars for a while. The air shifts. You feel it the moment you step into the orchard. Not wind. Not temperature. Something deeper. As if the thread that holds the world together just trembled. As if the loom paused mid-weave. The cows are still. The leaves stop rustling. And in your pocket, tucked in the folds of your tunic, the golden thread is glowing. Faint. At first. A pulse. Then brighter. Hotter. Time, it seems, has run out. You don't panic. Not immediately. You're a god. You've stared down chaos. Wrestled fate. Watched cities fall. But this is different. This isn't about empires. This is Alcestis. You find her in the courtyard. Seated on a stone bench. A bowl of berries in her lap. She's smiling softly. Watching the bees. But her skin, gods, it's pale. Not like before. Her glow. The sharpness of her eyes. Even the weight of her presence, it's thinning. She sees your face. And she knows. She sets the bowl down gently. "So, that's it?" You kneel before her. "Not yet." She touches your cheek. Her hand is cool. "It's okay," she says. And for a moment, she sounds like someone so much older than the years she's lived. "We all have to go." "Not like this." You pull the thread from your pocket. It's searing now, burning against your skin. A countdown. A contract. "I made a deal." You whisper. "I bargained for time." You gave too much. "I'd give more." She smiles. You always say things like that. But time isn't a thing to give. It's a thing to spend. You clench the thread in your fist. Somewhere in the orchard, the trees groan with old magic. Then you hear it. Footsteps. Not from the house. From beneath. The ground grows cold. The air warps. The birds fall silent. Even the bees vanish. Hades has arrived. He doesn't shout. Doesn't declare. He just steps from the shadow of the olive tree. Cloak trailing behind him like ink spilled across the world. His eyes are voids. Not cruel, just inevitable. Apollo. Hades. You knew this day would come. You nod. "I did." He glances at Alcestis. She gave her vow. Freely. "I know. She must come." You step forward. "Take me." Hades tilts his head. "You cannot die. I can go." Silence. The orchard trembles. Hades stares at you for a long, long moment. Then, "You would bind yourself to the underworld, for her?" You nod. Alcestis speaks. Softly. No. You both turn. She's standing now. Barely. But she's fierce again. He's not the one who made the vow. You try to object. She holds up a hand. No, she says. I walked into this with my eyes open. You won't steal my choice just because you're afraid. I'm not afraid. You are, she says gently. And that's why I love you. Hades watches the two of you. This mortal woman with her cracked fingernails and her iron soul. And this god whose light is dimmer but deeper than before. Then, to your surprise, Hades sighs. Always the mortals, he mutters. They ruin everything. He reaches into his sleeve, pulls forth a scroll. It glows faintly red at the edges, her contract. He looks at you. One exchange. One time. No loopholes. No rewrites. You nod. He unrolls the scroll, lifts a hand, and burns it. It disappears in a flash of shadow and gold. Alcestis gasps. Her knees buckle. You catch her. The thread in your hand dissolves into stardust. Hades nods. She lives. But, he raises a finger. But you are now marked. When your exile ends, you will return, not to Olympus. You swallow. To you. He nods. You will not die, but you will serve, for 1 year, in my house. You take a shaky breath. I accept. He turns to leave, then pauses. Tell your father, he says, that the next time one of his sons interferes with death, I won't be so poetic. Then he's gone, like smoke in reverse. The orchard breathes again. The bees return. And Alcestis? She's warm, solid, alive. You hold her against your chest. Her heartbeat is steady. You saved me, she whispers. No, you say. You saved me. She laughs. Exhausted. You carry her to her room. She falls asleep in your arms. No ceremony. No last rites. Just breath. Slow and steady. And the quiet ache of relief. Historians love this part. They say Apollo saved Alcestis. But they never quite understand. She was the one willing to go. And you? You were just finally brave enough to stay. You'd think after facing the Lord of the Underworld, unmaking a divine contract, and bargaining away a year of your afterlife, the cows might cut you some slack. You'd be wrong. They do not care. Hector greets your return to the pasture by knocking over the fence you rebuilt last week. Penelope stands defiantly in a puddle she definitely knows she shouldn't be standing in. Ajax licks a sharp rock, then gets mad at the rock. Foamy, perhaps as protest or celebration, climbs halfway onto a cart and then panics because he can't remember how legs work. Greg just stares at you with sleepy confusion and then sneezes directly into your sleeve. You sigh, look up at the sky, and say to no one in particular, I helped a woman cheat death and delay fate itself. This is my reward? A gust of wind answers. A leaf flutters down, and from the far end of the pasture, one of the satyrs peeks out from behind a tree, grinning, then disappears before you can threaten him with shrub-based punishment. Peace is fleeting, especially on a farm. You adjust your cloak, pick up your staff, and go to work. The herd is unusually rowdy. You suspect they know something's changed. Animals always sense these things. Perhaps they noticed the shift in your gait. The way your shadow flickers slightly at night now. Like it's not entirely your own. Or maybe they're just bitter you've been distracted from your full-time cow wrangling duties by, you know, saving a life. You find yourself reflecting, a lot, about what comes next. The year in Hades' service isn't a death sentence. But it's not nothing either. You imagine endless gray corridors. Silence. Echoing footsteps and doors that lock softly behind you. You imagine no sun, no fig trees, no grape. Actually, grape might be a nice addition to the underworld. He could chew on Cerberus's tail. Still, you're not ready. And yet, you are. This is the cost of care. Of love. Of choosing to be part of something messy and small and mortal. You never thought a cow herd would teach you so much about being divine. Admetus joins you as you're attempting to untangle Ajax from a makeshift rope maze he invented for no reason. The king leans on the fence. watching you with quiet amusement. You've changed. I smell worse. That too. He's silent a moment. Then, thank you. You wave a hand. It was her choice. I just gave the cosmos a small administrative delay. He chuckles. Well, it's enough. You've become something more than a god here. You glance at him. Is that a compliment? Coming from someone who still thinks goats are smarter than nobles. Yes. You smile. Half tired. He gestures toward the herd. They've changed too. I noticed. They're more disobedient. They're braver. He says. They trust you more, even when they're stubborn. You watch Ajax headbutt a tree. Their definition of trust is unorthodox. Admetus nods. So is yours. You spend the rest of the day in the fields. Feeding, repairing, gently redirecting. You hum while you work. Small tunes stitched together from old temple songs and the lazy rhythm of cowbells. The sun sets slowly. The sky smeared in honey and ash. Alcestis joins you near twilight. She's barefoot in the grass. Eyes bright. Pulse steady. Alive. Real. She brings you a mug of something warm. You sip. It tastes like apples and dirt and effort. She leans against you. So. You got a year to go. You nod. Not yet, but soon. I'll wait. You glance sideways. You've done enough waiting. She shrugs. I'll wait anyway. The cows lie down one by one. Hector sighs and curls his massive bulk into a resting heap. Penelope flops beside him, as if by deliberate challenge. Grape rolls over in the hay like a dog. You sit beside Alcestis, shoulder to shoulder in the soft dark. And think. You've lived through light and plague and prophecy. You've watched empires crack and stars rise. But you've never really been. Not like this. You run your fingers along the worn staff at your side and say softly. They're still angry. She glances at the herd. The cows? No, you grin. The Fates. She smirks. Let them be. You tilt your head back and watch the stars emerge. Slow and sure. And for once, you don't try to name them. You just let them shine. You don't need a divine clock to know it's nearly time. Something in the air tells you. A subtle thinning. The days still stretch long. Golden and warm, but you feel the edges cool. The sun hanging a breath shorter each evening. Even the cows seem to know. They've grown unusually well behaved, not obedient. Never that, but quieter. Less prone to theatrics. Ajax hasn't headbutted a tree in 2 days. Foamy, somehow, has learned how to walk around a bucket instead of through it. Penelope still refuses to drink from the clean trough. But you've accepted some mysteries are eternal. You wake before dawn now. Not from obligation, but because sleep feels greedy. You don't want to miss a single moment. You spend the early hours moving through the field with practiced ease. Humming quietly. The sun, when it rises, doesn't blaze, it glows. Not like before, not from you, but it's enough. Admetus meets you at the barn, nods toward the old olive tree by the fence, and says, that'll be ready for harvest soon. You nod, you'll want to keep the goats out. He laughs, I never wanted to keep you out. Either. You smile. It's not heavy. It just is. That afternoon, you begin to pack. Not clothes. You've only ever had the one tunic here. After all, not scrolls. Not relics. What you pack is subtler. You take the chipped reed flute the stable boy gave you. The one that never quite played in key but always made the cows curious. You take the thread, a whisper of gold now. Inert, powerless, but still warm. As if it remembers what it once carried. You take the laurel leaf Zeus tossed at your feet. Now dry and curled at the edges. Crumbling slightly like it's finally ready to be a part of the soil. And you take your lyre. Of course. Alcestis watches from the doorway. You're not really packing, she says. No, you admit. I'm just putting things in places. She walks over, presses something into your palm. A small pouch. Inside. Thyme. Rosemary. A smooth stone with a streak of white across it like a falling star. Your hands always smell like herbs. You murmur. She smirks. That's the idea. You hold the pouch to your chest. Close your eyes. The cows gather that evening. Not by command, just, all together, as if they've scheduled their own farewell. You stand in the middle of the field as the sun dips low. The wind is light. The bells at the far end of the pasture jingle softly. More memory than sound. Grape comes first, nosing your hand, then Penelope, stoic and strangely maternal. Hector stands off to the side but doesn't complain when you scratch behind his ears. Ajax bumps your leg, gently this time. Foamy, of course, tries to eat your sleeve. You sit with them until the stars appear. Alcestis finds you later, still out there. She sits beside you. You'll come back, she says. You don't answer. Because you don't know. She leans into your shoulder. You play your lyre for her. A slow, quiet song, one without words, one that knows it's not enough, but still dares to be heard. Historians call this the twilight of your exile. They write that Apollo returned to Olympus with calloused hands and mud still on his boots. That he walked into the halls of light with a mortal smile and a memory stitched into the corner of his heart. They say the sun glowed softer for years after. They don't mention the cows. They never do. But you'll remember them, and the fields, and her, and the time-scented air of a place where you were once. Just briefly, no one special. Just someone who stayed. The day arrives quietly. There is no crow, no trumpet, no celestial messenger wrapped in cloud and gold. Just the breeze, already warm, brushing through the fields. The morning dew dries faster than usual. Even the sky looks expectant, like it knows what today is. You rise early, not rushed, not afraid, just deliberate. The cows are waiting. You suspect they didn't sleep. Neither did you. One by one, you walk through the pasture, touching each one gently on the shoulder. A silent goodbye. They understand. You've never quite known how, but they always have. Penelope doesn't move until you do. Foamy tries to follow you to the barn, and you had to bribe him with the last of the fig cakes. Ajax watches you go like someone trying to memorize your shape. Hector stands tall, as if volunteering to guard the pasture now that you're gone. Grape curls around your leg like a giant, fuzzy shadow. You kneel beside him. You'll be in charge now. You whisper. He blinks, then burps. It is, oddly, comforting. You head toward the olive grove. That old spot. The one with the mossy stone where you used to rest and dream of Olympus. Where you met a nymph who saw through you. Where you played broken notes for curious trees. Where she always finds you. And she does, Alcestis. Barefoot, holding a piece of bread in one hand, a half-finished braid in the other. You smile. Didn't finish your hair, you say. She shrugs. Didn't seem important. You sit together, quietly. The sun creeps higher. So, this is it, she asks. For a little while, you say. 1 year. That's what I owe. Will it hurt? Only when I leave. She exhales, slowly, then presses something into your hand. A fig seed, wrapped in cloth. For planting, she says. When it's done, you slip it into your belt. You look up at the sky. It's almost noon. She takes your hand. Her grip is steady, warm. No words, no promises. Just being. Then, with a slow breath, you rise. You pull out the lyre. The one you rebuilt with barn scraps and patience. The one the cows hated at first, but came to love. The one she said always sounded a little off, but in the best way. You begin to play. Not for glory, not for gods. For her, for Admetus, for Ajax, Penelope, Foamy, and Grape. For olive trees, and late mornings, and the smell of time on worn fingers. You play until the wind picks up. Until the gold creeps back into your skin, humming under your ribs. Until you feel the veil shift, thin, soft, ready. You look to Alcestis. She nods. And you walk, barefoot, into the sunlight. You do not disappear. You simply change direction. Heading not up, not down, but inward. Toward silence. Toward a debt well paid. Toward a song only one soul will ever hear again. And behind you, the herd watches. As they always have. as they always will. So now, dear listener, the story settles. The sun has set. The cows are quiet. The fields are still. Apollo walks into shadow not with fear, but with grace, with a smile that says, I chose this. Not to rule, not to conquer, but to understand. And you? You followed him there, through laughter, mud, broken fences, fig cakes, and whispered songs. You stood with gods and drank with satyrs. You learned that even divinity can bend, and that love, in all its strange simplicity, can soften anything, even light itself. So breathe now. Let your shoulders sink. Let the rhythm of hooves and harp strings lull you. You are not in Olympus tonight. You are in the quiet between stories. In the warmth of an orchard kissed by dusk. In a barn that smells faintly of rosemary and mischief. Let yourself rest there. Let the sounds fade. The cows are tucked in. The moon is rising. The sky is no longer something to chase, it's something to sleep beneath. And if you dream of fig trees, or old gods in worn tunics, or cows with too much personality, don't be surprised. It just means you've walked the fields too. Good night, traveler. Sleep gently. And remember, sometimes even the brightest light needs to go quiet for a little while.